Hello, you are tuned in to Eric Jose on Doctor Who on YouTube. Here we will cover pretty much anything Doctor Who, spin-off shows from Doctor Who itself, old Doctor Who, anything goes, anything at all, people. I will talk about all kinds of Doctor Who here with you. So if you have any comments, questions, anything that you just want to just talk about or, ask me a question about, because I do have an extensive history with Doctor Who. I've seen pretty much everything that's available. So, like I said, I encourage feedback and comments and questions, so please do so. And I just wanted to introduce you to my friend here, Minnie Handles, who will be in my videos with me. Hello, fellow Whovians out there in YouTube land. I'm here today talking about Doctor Who again, obviously, of course, and we're talking about episode 7, The Pyramid at the End of the World. Before I get started talking about that, I just wanted to say real quick, hey, for anybody out there watching my videos, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I'm, trying to make a bit of a YouTube channel here about talking about Doctor Who, and it may take me some time to build it up. But for those that are here that are actually watching my videos, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I look at it this way: if my channel doesn't ever take off, well, at least I spent time talking about Doctor Who, which is never wasted time, really. So, at least in my opinion. So, anyways, moving on, we'll talk about here episode 7, Pyramid at the End of the World, which starts out kind of funny with Bill and her new friend, on a date or hanging out and walking down the street and whatever, right? And they end up back at Bill's place. They're at the table and they're talking, and suddenly unit or soldiers come in the door, and they're asking Bill questions. She gets up with her hands in the air like this, and the guy's like, "Oh, sit down, but keep your hands on the table," and they're totally freaking Bill out. And this poor girl, who had a little bit of a inkling though, because Bill was kind of trying to tell her about the weird dream, like what happened in the Matrix in the previous episode with the projected realities that the monk guys were monitoring and learning about humans from and everything. Anyway, so she was basically trying to explain a little bit of that to the girl. So at least the girl, when these people came bursting in the door, it didn't shock her completely. I'm sure it still shocked her, but anyway. So they get bursted in on like that, and and it's actually a real date this time, as I was just saying. It's not in that Matrix created by the monks, but the whole thing is that the UN official, it comes into the apartment after the soldiers say it's clear, it's secure or whatever. This UN official comes in there asking her help to find the president. And she oh, what, me? Even if I could, I would never vote for him. He's orange, which I thought was hilarious. But anyway, and then the UN guy goes on to explain that he's not talking about that president. He's talking about the doctor that he heard she was the one to come to if he was looking for the doctor. And that's where basically Bill finds out that the doctor is the president of the world, declared by the UN in times of crisis. And so they find out that they got the doctor's TARDIS and took it out through, they made one of the windows. They essentially, the doctor basically, they get his TARDIS out and they take it into the plane, and when the doctor steps out of the TARDIS, he's on that plane and they're flying or whatever, and the UN guy's there, and then they start talking about this pyramid that has appeared in this war zone in Terrakistan, I believe it was, or something like that. And there's this, suddenly this 5,000-year-old pyramid that just appeared in the middle of a battle zone. And so that's where they're basically headed to. But as the doctor's stepping out of the TARDIS, he's like, "Hey, how'd you get this in here? None of the windows in my office are big enough for you to get this out." And one of the military guys looks at him kind of sheepishly and says, "There is now." So, they busted out basically one of the windows in part, in some of the wall around, so they could get the TARDIS out of his office and put it on the plane. But anyway, funny stuff. So we find out that the doctor talks to the alien, walks up to it, and Nardal's telling him what's happening when the pyramid's opening up. He talks to one of the monk things, and they said, "Oh, well, we'll talk again." and when the world's about to end or whatever. So that's it. The pyramid closes back up. Doctor walks back over. They kind of start talking about what's going on, and then short while later, everybody's phones suddenly show 11:55 p.m., which is 5 minutes to midnight, and so that's like the countdown. Because there's going to be this big horrific event on Earth that's going to end all life. That's what these monk being things have determined, and they can help, but they want something in return. So the reason why the world is doomed, of course, is we can thank the hungover lab tech at the lab where this enzyme that I guess shouldn't have got released, or at least so much of it, at least too much of it got released, and it caused. I'm not exactly clear on what happened there, but clearly an enzyme that wasn't supposed to get released, or not too much of it was supposed to get released, got released by the hungover guy, and basically that causes all the plants to immediately like melt into like almost like liquefy pretty much when the gas that's created by this enzyme when it's in the system that filtrates the air for these little plants that they're obviously running tests with different enzymes on. So anyway, it starts liquefying any kind of organic material, and that's so we can, like I said, we can thank the hungover lab tech, but at least we have Erica there. Okay, Erica's pretty solid, so she actually manages to help the doctor save the day. Okay, so as I was saying already, that these monks want something in return. They're willing to save humanity from this pending disaster, but they want something in return. So that's when the doctor and the generals from that little area, that war zone, and the UN secretary all go into the pyramid, and they talk to the monk corpse things, and they basically find out what they're after. The monk things are willing to save the humans from the pending disaster, and they can, but in return, somebody who power is vested in on Earth must give consent that these beings will then rule the human race and rule Earth, or basically. So in essence, the human race either can die or it can live under the boot heel of these corpse monks, whatever they are. I don't know, maybe some offshoot of the headless monks, who knows. Anyway, so we find out, we see there that the UN secretary guy basically right away just gets scared by the whole damn thing, and he immediately is like, okay, well, I consent, but he consented out of fear. And when they go over and like do the little mumbo jumbo to see if his consent is pure, because his consent wasn't pure, it was based out of fear. He basically turns into like ash, and like on the spot, like right there. So it also happens later when the generals come in and they decide that they're gonna give consent, right? But they're doing it from a strategy base, live to fight another day, where it's like based about strategy, not about love, as these beings said. They need the whoever they're ruling to acquiesce with love or out of love. So that's what they need, and so these generals come in there thinking that they're going to come in there with strategy, and that strategy was gonna somehow seem pure. Well, it didn't. And anyway, so then we get to the point where they're all trying to figure out what this pending disaster is. The doctor is absolutely trying to figure out what this pending disaster is, because if he can find out what that is and stop it, then these monks have nothing to bargain with, because the human race doesn't need them at all and has no need to consent to them, right? So the doctor's automatically trying to find out where this disaster's at. And they're all looking, they're going through whatever, hundreds of thousands of different like lab trials that are going on, because you know, they figure it's going to be something with some kind of scientific thing that gets loose, obviously. So they narrow down to like, you know, pathogens and whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then they get it narrowed down to like 126 different labs that they should probably be looking at that are working with something that is potentially that dangerous. And the doctor comes up with this. He goes back to the TARDIS with Nardole, and he's asking Nardole, "Can you hack into the cameras of all 126 of those things?" And Nardole's like, "Sure, I can, but what's the point?" You know. And he goes, you know, what's going to be the point of that if they're so powerful? And the doctor says, "We're going to shut them off." And then Nardole goes, "Oh, we're going to blind them, eh?" He goes, "Okay." He goes over to the TARDIS. He flips like a couple buttons. Boom! All 126 cameras at those labs go out. So we see in the pyramid that the whatever corpse monks do lose their video feed at that point, and so the doctor basically expected this or whatever, right? Because Nardole's like, "Oh, but as powerful as they are, they'll just switch it right back on, right?" And the doctor says, "Yes, but they're only watching one lab, and so you just need to look right now and see which one has been switched back on." And Nardole looks over and he's like, "Oh, you're a genius!" And so then they know the doctor, boom, pulls the lever, and they're dematerializing and heading off to that lab. So pretty funny, very clever, you know. And I think Nardole's smarter than that, honestly. But they made him seem deliberately dumb there because they needed the doctor to look cool, right? And that's what the doctor does. So. And something else I liked about Nardole in this episode is right before this little bit with the cameras and everything is they're trying to narrow down the labs and they're trying to figure out what could cause this kind of catastrophe. And so the doctor's like, "Oh, what could cause this?" And Nardole's like, "Oh, well, the four basic things that all life needs, right? Air, water, food, beer," which I thought was hilarious. But then the doctor goes, "Yes. Air, water, and food. All living things need that." So then that's how they're, you know, in their process of learning it. But hilarious because Nardole says beer. The freaking android says beer. It's hilarious. Anyways, and then the doctor doesn't mention beer. Anyways, it's funny. I love that bit. Anyways, so they get to the lab. The doctor steps out of there. He tells Nardole to take the TARDIS, you know, somewhere else while he does whatever he's doing there. And so he starts working with Erica, the lab tech there that's left, who had to suffer the idiot who was working with his hangover, who ended up getting his comeuppance when the fog liquefied him. Fortunately, Erica had on her, you know, suit, and so she was good to go. She was there to help the doctor when he arrived, and the doctor decides how he's going to sterilize the place, so that this horrible thing can't get out, and he's going to blow up the lab. So then he starts having Erica help him build a bomb, and so, you know, doing all that stuff, and then they realize that the plant matter, all the decaying organic matter that this fog is leaving behind it, can all be used as explosive. It's all just what they need to create an explosive. So they're able to then, you know, blow up the lab. So they start that whole thing in motion, keeping in mind this whole time the doctor is still blind. And there's one point where the doctor's setting up the final parts of the bomb or whatever, and Erica goes back to the lab, but the door shuts behind her. And so when the doctor gets there, he needs to get in, and she tries it from the inside. She's like, "Oh no, it's messed up. You're going to have to do it from out there." And she tells him the code to be able to do it. It has like these 4 different wheels that you got to spin to get in the right, you know, position, right? You got to be able to see the numbers on them. You would think that it would be Braille, you know, but maybe not. You know, maybe blind people aren't allowed to work in those kind of labs. But anyway, you would think there would be something, though. What if somebody got something in their eyes and it was just blurry and they were just trying to feel, you know, I don't know. Anyways, it just seems odd that there's no way to distinguish. But anyways, for the plot, it had to be that way. So the doctor can't see it. He can't open the door, and he's about to get blown up in the explosion that he's intended to sterilize this lab so that this pathogen or whatever it is doesn't get out. And so he's talking to Bill, and that's when Bill, because she loves and cares about the doctor so much, decides that she will give consent to the corpse monk things if they give the doctor his sight back. So they give him his sight back, and she gives the consent, and basically the episode ends with the doctor, seeing the lab get sterilized with the fire and everything, but he knows that at that moment Bill has just given consent, so now the whole entire world is in the hands of the corpse amongst things. So, and that is going to lead into the lie of the land, the next episode. So we're going to leave it there, folks. We'll see you next time. And if you haven't already, please hit subscribe.